Cardano, the blockchain advantage. With Christof Waton, Acta Finance, Lawrence Ong, Meld, and Damon Zwarich, Charlie 3.
Hi everybody, I am Dustin Plantholt. I don't think they announced me, but I am right there on the right. Not only am I the founder of a company called Crypterns, I also happen to be the Forbes Monaco head of crypto. So I'm excited to be here with our panel. We got Daniel on the far right, Joshua next to me, Lawrence on my left, and Christof. You know what's fascinating? I read this earlier that he who has not researched has nothing to teach. And I repeat that. He who has not researched has nothing to teach. So for the first question I'm going to give to my panel is, how do you do your research? So to you, Daniel.
Well, I mean, Cardano is, Cardano is research first, and that's one of the reasons why it is, the process is taking, longer than the average blockchain would, because you have to really lay the foundation down before you start developing on top of it, which has actually been plaguing our the blockchain movement, which is lack of infrastructure, lack of research to go on the bottom so that we can build on top of it. And so I think it's so important that anything that's built on top without research is ultimately going to break down, because you need to lay down the roads, and you need to lay down the infrastructure before you build any infrastructure.
I can appreciate that. Now, the same question to you, Joshua, is, how do you do your research? I mean, there's a lot of information out there, a lot of misinformation, because I think that for all of us, depending upon where you were born, is typically what you're going to believe. So the area you grew up in, and indoctrination happens. So how do you make sure that the research that you're doing is not just to validate, but it's also in some ways, to challenge your own beliefs?
Yes, I agree. I think the documentation is everything. So testing and testing again. So iteration and iteration and more iteration. I think being able to prove the documentation that it is sound, there is a test net, and you're testing, and then you're actually going to mainnet, especially for interoperability and smart contracts, to make sure everything is safe and secure. I think documentation for that is necessary.
So same question then for you, Lawrence. Where do you research? How do you learn? Because we all learn in different ways. There are those like me that probably spend way too much time because it takes me a little bit longer. So how do you do it when we have to prioritize our lives? All of us are busy. All of us have something going on. And a wise man once said to me, you never run out of a minute in each day to do the things you really want to do. So when you have that extra minute, where does it go? Is it a website? Is it Reddit? Where do you go?
So for me personally, Reddit is a huge source of information. I love staying within the community because you find that they pick up a lot of things that you would never see yourself. And the thing with Cardano that I love is that they've got one foot in the real world. So it's not just the case where, okay, it's all in the code, it's all in the dev team, it's all on that side. They have a foot in the real world. They understand what human problems are going about and how they need to address them.
The early days that I got into the crypto space, and I will only speak for myself, but I joined a cult, not knowing that I was willing to trust an anon that probably was, 16 years old, 50 years old, who knows, and they were bringing me into their world. And I hadn't done my research. You see that word, DYOR, that the letter in the acronym, and we talk about research, that when you look at Cardano and what they have done in IOHK, and that these are visionaries. These are not people who've been rushing. These are people who are taking their time to do it right. And is that what it takes for sustainability, Christof? Is it taking your time like it's a marathon, or do you go into it like it's a race?
No, you definitely need to take your time to do things right. When you look at you're doing research, it's not split yourself. You need to read a lot. You just need to spend time reading a lot. And to cross-confirm things, like you go directly to the author of the article to ask them, like, how do you come to these conclusions then? To truly understand something, that's where research is the core thing of every project where if you have not done your research, then how will you succeed? How are your next steps? How can you, like, there's always going to be hiccups in the road. If you've done your research, you already know which are the parts or other parts that you can take, actually.
Success leaves clues, doesn't it? Success leaves clues. You see what an organization is doing, and when I look at Cardano, I see process and I see procedures. Now, Daniel, you've been in the early days of creating this. So in the beginning, like most companies as startups, as the founder of a startup myself, there is some chaos you're trying to figure out. So how do you do that in the space that is 24/7, all day, all night, doesn't let you turn it off? How do you look through the chaos, and how did Cardano do it? How did IOHK do it to find order in that?
Well, I mean, personally, you do it, you know, 2 steps shy of going insane. And that is basically, you know, doing really, really long hours every day, trying to wear many hats. And really, it's really about trusting the vision. As you mentioned, I've been in Cardano pretty much since the beginning of the project. I was, I believe, one of the first 5 or 6 people that joined the project after Charles, obviously. And I remember having an interview with Charles early 2016, and him telling me, laying out this vision that he had for Cardano. And this is before Cardano was Cardano. Nobody knew Cardano. I mean, the blockchain project. People knew Cardano, the historical figure, but not the blockchain project. And he laid this thing out for me, and I said, you know what? It sounds like a lot, but it really sounds just feasible. And that's really what drove me, you know, that's really what drove me to kind of wear these many hats, establish processes. And it was chaotic somewhat in the beginning. There were people that kept trying to claim that we were, you know, up to no good and we were just, you know, scamming and this and that. And, you know, you have to work past that. You have to keep your eye on the prize. You have to keep your eye on the goal. You have to believe in what you're doing. And you just, it builds. It builds upon itself.
So it sounds to me that this was a process.
Absolutely.
That no matter how impulsive some of us want to be, that sometimes it's better to wait. Sometimes it's better to get to know who you are as an organization. And as the founding partners that all came together, I imagine the roadmap had some different tweaks and toques, because as you listen to your customers, that's when you start to gain true knowledge. So now, Joshua, we talked about this word offline, and you set it up here, interoperability. Are we talking like Legos? Because I love Legos, by the way.
I do love
like Legos. Yeah. Is that the best way to explain this?
I do. I think Legos is a great example for the engineer minds out there. But interoperability, whether you're thinking DeFi and playable NFTs to be able to stake it on multiple chains, the metaverse, whatever that means, being able to see blockchain as interoperability, I think having the internet connected, basically going on any website and making it interoperable. I think the ability to go on and connect to any chain is an art. And that, I think with security, it'll maybe take five years to be able to make that fully transparent and interoperable, where zero knowledge proof comes and you have security to go cross chain, where you don't have rug pulls and you can have the smart contracts that they're truly safe. But I think it's like 95 before the dot-com bubble. It's so early on. So with that interoperability, it may take some time, but I think we're moving towards that, and that interoperability is the goal.
I love that. So that kind of leads into the next segment, and that is admiration. You know, when you question your own world of who you admire, who you look up to. Someone once said to me, Dustin, when you go on Twitter, Dustin Plantholt, who does Dustin follow? And you look at these high-performance people around the world, it is important. Where are they getting their information from? Who are they connected to? And so I've started to follow people that I admire. And so my question for you, Lawrence, is this. You know, you've been in the ecosystem now. Who do you admire?
It's a very good question, but I would always go back to the people who are educating us most. So obviously you have founders like Charles Hoskinson, you have Vitalik, but then I also go towards the KOLs and the influencers in the space. like yourself, like
I'll
Coin
keep
Bureau.
going with that. I mean, by all means, we can continue.
But honestly, though, it's where do we all start? Because I tell you, most of us didn't start on Reddit or Discord or all of these niche communities. We started on YouTube because that's where the majority of the resources are. And so I think it is important to note that when you're watching these first videos, what is blockchain? What is crypto? That you acknowledge that these people, these are the ones who are actually changing the whole space, because it's great that everyone is working on this technology and we're doing really revolutionary things. But without the overall influence, without people understanding what it is we do, without becoming mainstream and that push that we're trying to do at the minute, there's nothing there. It's the audience, it's the customers. And so definitely people like Coin Bureau and Digital Asset News and all of these great YouTubers who are just there, and they're not there to push an agenda, they're just there to educate people. So for me, that's who I admire most in the space, because without them, we don't have anything.
So there is someone that I admire, and it immediately came to mind. His name is Rich Vogel. He works with somebody in New York City by the name of Michael Loeb, who was one of the individuals behind Priceline. And he once said to me, people support what they help to create. Now think about that. People support what they help to create. And it sounds to me that that is what's been happening in the Cardano community, is that the community is supporting it because they're a part of creating it. Is that what you see as well, Christof? And I love your name, by the way. For those of us that have seen Frozen like a million times, this is the first time I've ever met a Christof. True story.
Here we go. I'm happy to be the first Christof that you meet. No, I really feel a part of the whole Cardano journey, because the whole blockchain side is new. With the PAB, everything is new, so everything needs to be tested. Now, how can you get something tested? It's by engaging, IOHK is engaging with the project as well, allowing them to test. There's on the IOHK Discord, for example, like any project that has problems or issues or questions, like the whole community, not just IOHK people, but the whole community is just there to help you. And Cardano, there's many lovers, there's many haters, but Cardano itself, from the development side, it's a family. So being part of that whole journey, it really means something to be one of the first projects actually to build on the blockchain, and so on and so on.
And you were a part of creating that process. So how did you make the decision? Because I can tell you the way I am. I'm a perfectionist. I like things a certain way, the best way, my way. So how do you do that? How do you bring a community in of people from around the world, all walks of life, different education levels, believe in God, don't believe in God? How do you create a community around that? How do you unite them?
Well, you really have to understand what resonates. You have to really understand how to read the room, or the worldwide room, in this instance. And you really have to know also in the community, because we all know that in the blockchain space, there's quite a bit of toxicity that happens, and it just happens because there's a lot of opinions. A lot of people think that they know, that their way is the way, what we were talking about before. Everybody, there's some people that think that there's one blockchain to rule them all. It's like Highlander. It's just everybody needs to go away, and there's just one. There's Bitcoin, or it's Ethereum, or it's Cardano, or whatever. Maximalism, that's toxic. And really, you have to see past that. You have to understand what is just hot air and what is actual critique, and unite people around that. You have to be accepting to critique, and you also have to understand what really is disguised as a critique, but it's just disguised FUD. Because Cardano, because I have been there since the beginning, it's mine. That's how I feel about it. It's mine. It's mine just like it is yours and yours, but it's mine because I was there, I witnessed its birth. And so it feels as much mine as it does to Charles Hoskinson or to anybody else who was on there. And that's why I want to make sure that it is properly evolved while not being misrepresented and injected with toxicity and maximalism, wherever it comes from. Okay, even Cardano maximalists, I will not accept. I will not accept people that will go and say Cardano is the best, everybody else stinks. No, you tell me why. Okay, you explain to me why you think that this project is not doing it right. You might be right, you might be full of it, but there has to be dialogue. We have to talk about this because we're still really early, and we really need to understand that there's going to be the way the blockchain movement can blossom and can succeed in what we're doing is we all need to understand we need to work together, and everybody fills a specific part of this blockchain world.
You know, ideas come easy, but execution is the challenge. So, if you've been in business for many years, you know, the idea, everyone has this idea. Oh, I got this idea. I got a really good one. So how do I take it out of my head? How do I execute? And then I'm going to ask the rest of the panel, how do I execute that on Cardano?
Well, I think the community, going back to following up just about the community, I think the Catalyst community, what Cardano has done just overall in the blockchain space is very unique with the grant program and everything around that. I think the community is so important to execute. So it's pushing that Web3 mentality.
I love that, by the way.
Right.
That, for those of you in the room, that is, I call the billion-dollar idea.
Right. So I think that this actually, looking at Catalyst and the community and the 35,000 people that have come around the grant program, that's the frontier of seeing blockchain in its finest and what DAO software in 10 to 20 years is going to be. This is the groundbreaking frontier of shaping that software and how to scale DAOs. Scaling decentralized bottom-up, top-down. I love that what Cardano has really blazed in that top-down, bottom-up format. And that execution in terms of whether you're at a CBDC level for a government and connecting a DAO from the bottom up, connecting that execution in the middle ground. I think it's so visually compelling to see what Cardano has done, blazing the trail for all of us in the future to learn from, to see in 5 to 10 years what's going to happen from there.
Has anybody ever heard that term, that at 10,000 hours you become the expert? At 10,000 hours, you finally have leveled up. Or maybe you haven't reached it and you want to know, well, how do I continue? So for those of us that don't know, how do I begin? How do I start? How do I take my business and turn it to the next level? How do I come into the industry? You look at it in the early days when you got in compared to where it is today, and we are less and less of the Wild West than ever before. So tell the audience, where do they begin if they are looking to build on Cardano? Where would they start?
They start by really just getting excited. That's all it begins with. It's just getting excited. In behavioral science, we have what we call the pyramid of value. And the top of that pyramid is working on something which is bigger than yourself. Having this end goal which is not about you as an individual or as a business, but contributing to something much larger on a grand scale. And so where do you start? You start with yourself, you get excited about the project, and then everything else comes. When I was introduced to Cardano, it shocked me. You know, I love seeing this ecosystem where they start from the bottom up instead of from the top down. I love that they care about everyday people, and then you start reading, you start watching videos, you start getting into content, and then you speak to the community, and everybody is so accepting, everyone is so ready to teach you something new. And I think once you get on that roll and it's building and it's building and it's building, you just don't stop. You don't get off the train because you're so involved, you're so integrated with everybody else. And the community is so lovely. I would honestly, I'd put your hands up with humility and just say, look, I don't know anything. And nobody knows everything. And just say, can you teach me? And
so I'm hearing that you could just ask.
Yeah, definitely.
You can ask the community.
Ask anybody in the community.
So jumping over to you as well, Christof, as we come now down to the final 90 seconds, it's like the countdown. Same thing for you. If you were to tell a younger you what to do next, or give some guidance to a younger you so that you can save people like me, and I know I'm older than you, but you can save people like me my 10,000 hours. Give me that quick Reader's Digest of here's where you begin.
To my younger self, I would just say drop school earlier and just start with blockchain.
Oh, please don't do that. Don't go and drop school. I know some of you are like, I graduate in 5 days. I'm like, no, wait it through.
No, I think like I started as a community member myself as well back in 2017. So I grew up everything from the bottom up. I learned everything by talking to people, talking for the community. And the community is something very precious and very holy. Every community of a project is basically the health of a project. When you go into a project community and like the community is toxic and it's like the chances, and there's no fun for the founders, there's no fun for the marketing people, there's no fun for the community. The token price is just an appreciation basically from the people towards the project, nothing more. Well, and the utility in hopefully most of the cases. But I think working together with your community, they're your number one voice that you need to listen to at all times.
I like that. And so I'm going to throw it back at the OG, Dan the man. Dan, final words to invite people to join the Cardano community. I'm going to send it off with you, so you got to hurry up. It says time is up.
Well, read about it. Do some research about it. See why it's great. Look at our white paper. See some videos by Charles. He's very good, very articulate about why Cardano could be the way for you. It's a very robust, it's a very open ecosystem, and don't be afraid to step into it. You know, a wise man once said, true wisdom comes in knowing that you know nothing. I believe it was Bill S. Preston Esquire that said it, Bill and Ted. But you have to remember that, and just don't be afraid to just get your feet wet.
All right, you know the old saying that to have a friend, you got to be a friend? The same rings true in this industry. If you want to know more, just go ask somebody. All right, everybody, thank you for your time. Thank you to our panel.